sure you're all as excited. Thank you, Marilee. Okay, so I'm sure you're all as excited as I am to hear these lovely individuals share their work and the stuff that they do today. So they're going to talk about supporting a safety net when trauma is triggered during family group decision-making process. And it's a conversation with Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians coordinators and elders. So I am going to pass it over to you, Marilee, to start. Thank you, everybody. Welcome.
Thank you. And I'll pass it back to you to admit people, Catherine. So,
yes, I am. Thank you.
So I don't need to multitask.
Perfect. No, I will do that.
Yeah. So it is just absolutely wonderful to be here with all of you and many familiar faces and new people too. I always enjoy meeting new people. And so we're just going to start by introducing ourselves. And as we do that, we'd invite you, if you want to put in chat your name, where you're joining us from, and what your connection is to FGC or FGDM. That will just help us all get oriented to who's here with us today. So I am Marilee Sherry. As many of you probably know, I've been a coordinator since 2005. Yeah, since 2005. I was first introduced to family group decision making in 2001 I was a supervisor for a child welfare team at that point and fell passionately in love with it. And even though I've been retired now for 6 years almost, see, time flies, this passion has followed me into my retirement years. And so, yes, we'll be talking about supporting a safety net. And I learned today about that word trigger, that's a violent word. Thank you, Vicki. I see you here. So we'll have to change the title of our gathering here, when trauma is activated, which is a much kinder and more descriptive word. So thank you. And so this passion for family group decision-making led me to the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians in beautiful Cherokee, North Carolina, and Patty and Trina, as their community decided that they wanted to implement family group decision-making. They obtained a federal grant. They were in competition with every state in the country as well. And this is the first time that a tribal community has gotten a federal grant when they were in that kind of a pool of competition. And so it's probably about 3 years now that I was doing this with Anita Horner. I still am. She's not able to join us today. And about a year ago, I met Patty and Trina. And so Patty has asked me to say a few words about her. I don't think I can do you justice, Patty. So Patty has very graciously come out of retirement as well. All three of us actually have come out of retirement to do this work for the Eastern Band. And she brings a lot of experience in the social work field with her, a lot of experience around trauma. And I'm really looking forward to what you have to say, Patty, as that relates to family group decision making. We've had the first family have a meeting, and they requested 3 follow-up meetings. And so 2 follow-up meetings. Yeah, 2. And so that will form the basis of much of what we share today. So Patty, is there anything else you want to add about that very brief introduction? You're good. And Trina, would you like to introduce yourself, or would you like, yeah.
Shio Nagata, Trina Owle. And hello, everyone. Glad to see everybody. And we will get started, I guess, briefly with Miss Patty.
Well, well, I have a couple of slides
Marilee's got
first,
some slides.
just to orient us. So when we think about safety planning, some of you will have heard me talk about this. I'm not sure that safety is the right word. For me, is it safe enough for everyone to have a voice and participate? Because I don't think anyone can ever guarantee safety. And that looks different for every single person. And so probably a couple of years ago now, Margot Post and I don't know if Margot's here today or not, gave a bit of a workshop to some of the coordinators in Ontario. I know some of our New Brunswick colleagues joined us. I can't remember if any of our upstate New York colleagues joined us or not. And we asked all of you, for the participants in family group conferencing or family group decision making, what does safety mean? And you all created this word cloud. And as we look at this word cloud, we all can see that these are relational words. They're not resources necessarily. They're relational. It's not something I can give you money to go buy. And so I really want to set the context today around safety being relational. It also is very individual. What's safety for me may not be safety for Patty or Trina. And so it's unique for each of us. And I'm just delighted that some French made it in here. One of our New Brunswick colleagues is primarily French speaking. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. Hopefully that went back to the slide I wanted it back at. There. So I wanted to just start with that context of safety means many, many, many different things. And for us in our role as coordinators, because that's what we're speaking about today, to be aware of that. And if the safety planning, if you want to call it that, is the same from one family to the next, we really need to stop and ask ourselves, what are we doing here? If the rules for respectful discussion, if the groups want that, all start to look the same, we have to ask ourselves, how much am I influencing this and not listening to the family group or creating enough space for them to create what works for them? So I just want to link this to the values that we all know. And I've actually lifted this right out of the training that Anita and I first brought to Eastern Band when we gave the training for the very first time. And we're consulting with the elders and other community members to see if the training met the cultural needs of the Cherokee. I was in a workshop this morning where a very similar process happened with the Cree community. And so we shared these two slides. And then in dialogue with the elders and the community, one elder in particular, Tom Belt, said, these are the Cherokee values. They're Gadoogie, the Cherokee word that Patty and Trina could explain much better than me. And the others said too, but they're not linear. They need to be in a circle. And you forgot one, they said to us. So with help from the community, whoops, now come on, why is this thing misbehaving? This is what has become, and this is actually what was in the subsequent trainings that we gave, including to the ones for you Trina and Patty, these are the EBCI, Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, family group decision-making values. And humor has been added, a sense of humor. And when we think of these values, they each have a place in creating safety. Sense of humor is foundational as well. So I'm just going to stop sharing for a second and just see if anybody has any questions. Really, what I'm hoping is that mostly we'll hear from Patty and Trina rather than listening to me. But are there any questions about what I've just shared? I'm just wanting to orient the conversation. No? Okay. So what we're hoping to do now is to have a conversation with Patty and Trina. Oh, Maula? I'm sorry if I
Yes,
didn't
I was
say your
trying
name
to
right.
find the hand, the hand. So I was
Oh.
struggling for a bit trying to find the hand. It's
I get
funny.
it.
It's funny how humor is added. Not saying it's funny, but it is, right? It is how having humor lightens the tension and creates a space of calm, and a free flowing of exchange when, especially when folks are coming into a meeting very tense and not are apprehensive and feeling fearful. It also, I reflect when you said humor, because I remember my grandmother always using humor or parables as a way of approaching a conflicting situation or a difficult time, right? So it's something that is very strong
Yeah.
yeah. I just wanted to comment.
Yeah. And I think Patty and Trina will probably have some examples of how humor played out during the work we've been doing together. I should also situate, I'm assuming you all know what family group conferencing, family group decision making is, but just briefly, there's a referral, then the coordinator from the Child Welfare Agency, which Patty and Trina will call family safety. I should just kind of give that little translation here right now. That's what the name of what we would call a child welfare agency is in their community. Then the coordinators go around and prepare everyone to come to the meeting. And there's the meeting with the different parts, but particularly private family time where the family sorts out what's going to work for them. And then there's the plan implementation and follow-up. So with that, I would like to turn things over to my dear colleague and sister, Patty. So Patty, I know we talked about, I know you've got it organized what you want to say, so I'm just going to leave you to it.
Thank you so much. I want to say thank you to all of you guys having us as a part of your conference. I listened to a couple of workshops earlier this morning, and I was riveted by the information that and I know that my family and my community culturally, historically, has experienced so much trauma. So as a FGDM coordinator, when it was explained to me and would I want to be a coordinator, I absolutely said yes. With unequivocally, I wanted to be a coordinator. And there are some things that is different from me, from Trina and I. I am a licensed clinical social worker, as my profession. So a lot of this stuff, a lot of this information was not new to me. In fact, it felt very familiar. So as I came on board after being trained with Marilee and excuse me, the things that I recognize is that going into the families, once we got the referral and once we contacted the family and asked them if they were interested in participating, our brief explanation on the phone, oftentimes the family, and I've only worked with one family, said, yes, we would like to do it. So one of the things that I, as a coordinator, feel like I need to know is the signs of trauma. So the family will invite us into their home and or by their choosing, a place in the community where they would like to meet, and what would be private and safe. During the visits, a lot of trauma is disclosed, that some of the signs of trauma is disclosed to us in those meetings. Oftentimes they will talk about growing up in family systems where there was a lot of physical abuse, emotional and mental and verbal abuse. And some, if they feel safe enough, will touch on sexual abuse that happened in their family. And as we talk about and visit with them about what the family group decision-making process is, we go into it with the whole focus is on the children. And when we realize or we get to a place where we get off track, we remind the family that we're doing, this for the children. And invariably, all the family members that we've talked to love the children, and they have invested in those children on some level. So as we talk about this process, it allows for doors to open for healing. We talk about the children, the parents getting their children back, but having a family group discussion with several layers of family members there opens the door for healing. At least, if not for healing, it is a beginning. The visits that we have had in some of the individuals' homes has exhibited trauma in ways of flight, fight, or flee. Some agitation and anxiety. Some of the family members were very frustrated and feeling overwhelmed because of their history and their relationship with the parents and them wanting to help. But because of certain situations, felt like that their assistance went unappreciated. And so therefore a lot of family members would just kind of back out of the picture. And so it often left the parents, just kind of fighting. And it was either sink or swim. And a lot of times the parents felt like that they were sinking. And oftentimes by the time family safety got involved, it was a feeling that left them pretty powerless, especially with the recommendations or the requirements that it was going to take for them to get their children back. The visits in their home or the place of their choosing, out in the community, a coffee shop, at a restaurant. The beginning of the visits was light and engaging, and oftentimes with a lot of laughter, especially healthy laughter, while all the time we focused on the children. So we talked about the FGDM process, what it is, and how it works. And during that whole process, from beginning to end, we maintained transparency. And in doing so, we felt like that they began to trust us in having this, what was really foreign to them, I think, a foreign concept of having all of these family members in one room together. So at the meeting, we're mindful that the trauma could be activated. All members are encouraged to take a break, or as individually or as a group, whenever they felt like they needed it. That too was often a key for this sense of being able to be empowered over their if their trauma is or does get activated. So we reassured them if we that all of us would be right outside. We'd be in another room should they need us for support. And if they wanted us to come back into the family private time, then we needed to be invited. We just didn't want to barge in and implement or insist on our ideas or suggestions. So for having a safety net for all participants at the meeting, first, we let them know that they were free to leave the meeting at any time if they chose. Second, it's their choice. If they choose to leave, no one would encourage or insist that they stay. Third, we were supporting all of them, no matter which family member and where they were at on the continuum of still being actively using and or being working a program so that they could certainly get their children back. We supported all of them. Fourth, they're all encouraged to take as much time as they need to draw up a plan during that meeting. They had a choice. And I think one of the things that was real clear to them, that they were in charge of what happened and how long they stayed or how they participated. However, the children were free to come and go in the meeting. They could stay in the meeting. They could participate in the meeting, but it was up to the children how long they stayed or how, often they would go in and go out. So choice to me is the operative word. It ensured empowerment. And I think having those discussions and conversations with the family members, feeling empowered was not ever a feeling that they came away feeling with any of the service workers, the people who were in charge of deciding when and if they got their children back. So my feeling as a new FGDM coordinator, my role in meeting and encouraging them to take part in the FGDM process. My role is to encourage them, support them, and empower them as the best of my ability, and reassure them that I'm going to walk along beside them through this process. The end.
So did you want questions now, Patty, or did you want to wait?
I would like to wait till after
Okay.
Trina gets done.
Okay, so you want me to start? Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Trina Owles, and I'm the second one of the FGDM coordinators here on the reservation. And this has really been a learning experience for me because I retired from the tribe with 31 and a half years, but my background was financial. All the grants, budgets, or anything financial, that's what I done. And so this has been new for me, and it's been very, very heartbreaking at times to see the families. Just like Patty had said, we've seen families with trauma. A lot of these people have grown up all their lives since they were small children and had some type of trauma. And I get to thinking back about our tribe and our vision for families. We look at 7 generations. We want our families to stay strong in mind, body, and spirit. And along with that, just like what Marilee had shown earlier on one of the slides, was our core values. And I worked with the PHHS program for the 31 and a half years, so we had our own core values as well. And one of the words that stuck out to me a lot was the interconnectedness that we had. And that to me kind of brings those families together that has been having issues maybe in the background from trauma throughout their lifetime. And I feel like with us being a FGDM coordinator, when we go out to those families' homes, we can kind of work with them and gain their trust, because a lot of these families have been belittled, ignored, just like what Patty said, maybe sexual trauma. They don't trust anybody. And so when we go in and maybe get their background as they start talking to us, we can kind of gain their trust. And another key component also is our confidentiality. We try to keep our confidentiality is a must unless there's something really dangerous that may be hurting a child or could potentially hurt a child, then that would have to be reported. And we are upfront with them about that when we do go out to the homes to meet with them. And it's been very eye-opening for me with some of the people that I've kind of seen and witnessed along the way. I know one guy, we had a meeting with him, and it was just like, well, if I get in that meeting, I might do this or I might say that, or we might start arguing or something like that. But once you kind of reel them in, so to speak, and talk to them about them to be able to be more open, and we also focus on the children. This isn't about what's going on with you, so to speak, it's the children. We need to keep them safe and have the opportunity to get back reunified with their family or their parents. So a lot of times, even like with the one guy that we had kind of worked with that day, I know Patty and them had really worked really hard with him. You could tell that I guess his bark was stronger than the actual bite, because with his third baiting that we had a couple of weeks ago, he was totally changed person. It was just eye-opening and just really thrilling to see how much that guy had changed over the past couple of months, I guess, just with the way Patty had spoke with him and Marilee, and then just amazing to know that he knew that he needed to make some major changes in his life in order to children. And I think with the interconnectedness that we have in our community, that's more of a cultural. We pretty much are a small community. We know a lot of the families and know what may be happening within those families. So we can kind of be there for a good support, which I could consider a safety net when we go in to have these meetings, because before we get into private time, if that family member feels unsafe, we can reassure them. We can ask them what they feel like they may need in order to feel comfortable and safe. They may want a support person in there or a mediator who can take the reins once they go into private time, and maybe secure some rules to be put on the board. Don't be blaming anybody. This is opening. You can have openness and be able to speak. Um, be respectful of others. Don't be shaming anybody. This is what you got to do in order to be unified with that child is to um, remember that the children come first. That's what we're here for, is to make sure that the children have their what they want. And even if we feel like there may be something, maybe we're kind of fearful, I think as a coordinator, sometimes you can feel that. So if you think that there may be something kind of, or the family member too may feel uncomfortable about somebody that may present some trauma issues or something within that man, I think too, we could also look at maybe having that person maybe send a letter in or a conference call or something in. That might be another avenue that we can do to keep people safe. And then we also, I know we've had the last couple of meetings there at the Cherokee Indian Hospital where there's security staff there as well. And also, just like what Patty said, if you're starting to feel uncomfortable or mad or upset, take a break and go get out of private time for a while. Go take a break and cool your engine, so to speak. And there's just a lot of different avenues as a coordinator that we can, work with these people on. And I just feel like I'm learning a lot as well because I came from a loving family. I didn't see the trauma, but I've got close-knit family members that have went through trauma issues and have lost their children and then try to reunify. And this particular concept, FGDM, wasn't available for them. They never got their children back. And so with this program here, this helps those families who are down here at the bottom, that at least they can raise up closer to the top with the family safety program and as well as the court system, and be able to kind of come up with a safe plan for those children so they can be reunified. And I've worked with a couple of the families, and I don't know if it's because we just spoke with them about this, and some of them were agreeable about going into having a meeting, but then at the last minute, they kind of got to meet and then talking amongst ourselves and worked out some situations, so we didn't have to have the family group discussion meeting. They kind of worked it out for themselves. And I was able to be there to help assist this last meeting that Patty was working on. And just watching that family from the last two meetings that she's worked with, there's been such a big change with that family. And some of them that we didn't think would ever speak to one another, they've been able to work and talk. And the children seem to be a whole lot happier and everything. But to me, I feel like one of the safety nets is the inner connectedness of what we've got as a core value, because we're such a small and cultural community. And that's another thing. If they want a prayer before the meeting or smudged or whatever they need to perform to maybe feel at ease, they can do that as well and have even a closing prayer. This is something that the family can do and maybe feel safer and better about what goes on within that meeting. And one thing too, I think that when they go into private time, a lot of times they may have some special guidelines, speak one at a time, be respectful of others. That's another key word, is the respect. And remember, the children may be coming in and out of that room. So you want to watch what you're saying and be respectful. And the children, that's the key. That's our 7 generations. And I just feel like as coordinators, we try to also ask the family, about where they would like to meet. They may want to meet at the gym, or they may want to meet at the conference room there in the hospital, or they may want to meet at home. And that's something that we just kind of have to work together to make them feel comfortable and safe. And I guess some of the other stuff that we've kind of asked them as well is if they feel safe, safe, or if they need to confirm anything else with us that might make them feel safe. There's just a lot of stuff coming from the family too that they may can bring to our attention. And I just feel that this is a really good opportunity for our people and for everyone across the world. If I can get this FGDM program, I think it's really good for everyone to have this. And that's all I have. If
Thank
anyone
you
has
to
any questions.
I have a question that I could maybe ask you to expand on a little bit. Thank you to you both. My heart just sings. One of the ways we talk about in family group decision making of creating safety is by widening the circle. And so there were lots of different branches of this circle. And maybe Patty, you were more a part of this, but Trina, you came to some of those preparation meetings too. And that brought out conflict, and it may have activated some trauma for people. So I'm wondering if you both would maybe speak about how to widen the circle so that it's still safe enough for everyone.
You want me to go first, Trina?
Yeah, you can.
When we first started working with the family, they were quick to tell us about all of the family members, the extended family members, and how they were not a part of their family, and a lot of it came from a lot of abuse, trauma. You know, as he shared with us why they weren't communicating. And so, as we talked about the children being the first and foremost, and recognizing, and they were all of them shared with us how much they loved those children and the investment that they had in those children. And so, the thing that I was concerned about was complete transparency. So each one of them knew who was going to be there. And although the history was overlapping and not a very healthy history, oftentimes a very traumatic and very unhealthy. So they all would say to us on some level, yes, we would like for them to have their children, but they don't need their children because of this and this and this and this. And they would share that. And yet at the same time, sometimes they would be the ones that were requested to be there for the parent, because they were not, that particular family member would be a safety person for them, a safe person for them that they could sit by in the meeting, or they could call them down if they thought that they were getting out of hand in the private time meeting. And it was real clear that that parent had great respect for that family member. Other family members, when they found out that, and I think referring back to the father that came in, and he requested a meeting with us, and when he found out the big picture of how many different family members were going to be there, and we told him up front that we were going to invite all of them. If a family member wanted to invite them, that we would open the door for them to come if they chose to. And so when he found out, he came in screaming and yelling and telling us he wasn't going to come to that meeting if so-and-so came, if such and such was going to be there because they were this and they were that. And he told us he went really completely down the list of why those individuals shouldn't be there. And his last statement was, why are they going to be there? They're not going to tell me how to raise my children because they don't know how to raise their own. And so we just kind of sit there and we listened and we listened. And because that was important for him, that was important. And so when he finally settled down, we sat there and we let him have the stage for as long as he needed it without interruption. And then whenever he got to the end, and he simply said, well, I'll come to the meeting. At first he said, I'm not coming. I'm not going to be in the same room with all of those people. I'm not going to do it. And this, that. And then after about 10 minutes of railing and carrying on and telling us why, he got to the very end and he said, okay, I'll come, but I won't listen. And so those opportunities for them to say what they need to say, so it would diffuse the energy, that pent up energy that they have carried for so long. Once it gets diffused, then they were able to either sit or participate and or listen to what the whole goal was for the children to come home. And so we got the parents permission that they would be there. Then we got the grandparents that could be there. Some of them wanted community members to come, a council member and a former council member. They were in their community. They wanted them to come. The adopted mom who adopted the siblings of these 3 children that we're talking about, she was able to come, and one of their siblings whom they had never met, these 3 youngest children had never met their oldest siblings. And so they got to, one of the siblings got to come, even though both parents had different partners at the time of the meetings. They were invited to come. Their safe person was invited to come for them to feel safe in the meeting. So all of them, it wound up about between 30 or 35 people were invited. And there was probably 5 or 6 that didn't come for whatever the reasons were. But the meeting went on just as planned. The mom didn't make it to the first one for family reasons, but she did come for the second one and the third one. And so those children having all of those family members in one room at one time was probably a pivotal point. And I can't speak for them, but could be a pivotal point of an absolute incredible memory that they'll have for the rest of their life, knowing that all of these people love them and care for them and want the best for them. And so that's probably the most powerful experience and a memory etched in their young minds that will probably be probably won't even compare to other memories that they may have in their life journey. So having all of these people in one room, some of them disconnected, some of them connected, some of them somewhat, some overlying, 2 or 3 of them sat in there while all of the energy was exploding about past relationships, past situations, past experiences, past knowledge, before they could really get down to the goal of developing a plan. And the beautiful part was they all stayed in there and they weathered the tumultuous energy that everything was happening. They stayed in there because they loved the children. They came back to the second meeting with less energy. And from what I understand, the third meeting was much shorter and they came out with a beautiful plan, much quicker. Still there's still some glitches, but to have seen that process and to have been part of it, to me, makes my heart smile. Is there any questions?
Mhm.
Yeah, let's open it up for questions. We have until 3 o'clock, I saw, so, or comments. And just unmute yourselves if you want to do that, or you can search around for the raise hand button.
Patricia, you talked about 3 separate meetings. What was the process of those kind of 3 separate meetings? Were they like, was it a follow-up, or were they 3 separate groups? What did that look like?
Trina, let me go first, okay? That
Okay.
the meeting I was talking about was the family that I had, and I left in December to come to Florida, and I told the family that Trina would be taking over because she was the other coordinator. So that first meeting was like I said, it was Marilee and I would go in and we would meet with the family. And for about the first 30, maybe 35, 40 minutes, it was spent just talking about different community things and what kind of things, what kind of work he did and some of the experiences he'd had doing certain things, and the partner talked about what she was doing these days, and how how life was was faring for them. And then they talked about having a pig that they named Bacon, and we all just laughed and had a good time about that. And then we got down to business, and so all of these home visits with each family member was setting the stage for these meetings that I wasn't going to be present, and that handing that family over to Trina, I felt very comfortable and very safe, and Trina and Marilee to go ahead and coordinate the second and third meeting.
So if I could clarify, some of this is translation, Patty, for Ontario and EBCI. So they were 2 follow-up meetings. So the very first meeting was the night before Hurricane Helene hit. And it was pouring down rain. And we got locked out at 9 o'clock. And so the meeting moved out to the porch to try to at least get their beginning plan together. And they requested to come back again in 1 month's time because they knew court was coming up. And so 1 month's time, we came back, and there were some people there who hadn't been able to be there for the first meeting, and a plan was created, and they wanted to come back again to see how things were going and to really get it good and solid for when the court date was going to happen. So it was all the one family all the way through. Yeah. Different branches of the family. And as happens, I mean, we all know this who do this work, and I must give a shout out to the family safety staff who have been incredibly supportive and patient. And after the very first plan was created, the supervisor said to us, "Hey, Patty, this is exactly what we've been trying to get them to do all along. Only this time it actually happened." And we see that. How often do we see that happen in our work, in family group decision making? Because it was their decision, not imposed on them. And the parents now had additional support around them and accountability. But yeah. Any
One of
other
the things-
questions?
One
Yeah,
of the
go
things,
ahead.
one just to add to it, in the very first meeting and in the introduction, we all got to introduce ourselves, and then we got to say what our relationship with the children was. And so as we went around the room, there, like I said, there might have been 25, 30 people. You wouldn't believe the number of the family members who grew up in foster care, foster care. And even the family safety caseworkers were just, they didn't know what to think, this is generational.
I'd like to say something as well, especially with finalizing the third meeting and them to doing the plan, which included a lot of items there as well that the children wanted, like cultural school, being able to play sports and different things. But it was the male figures that was finalizing the plan and stuff, basically, because one of them, one child was going to be staying with his uncle, guardianship, and then the other father had the other two children, and they were going to have to work out a plan so they can still visit. The children can still visit one another, where historically that would have been maternal. And I think another thing too, with family group decision making too, is it's okay to disagree. I know that we've had that as well, and families need to know that so they can work through things, because there's a lot of times they don't agree on stuff and they need to work through it for the children. And that's another thing that we stress to them, that it's okay to disagree. That's all I have.
There's one more thing. At the end with the family plan, I discovered that when the family gets involved with family safety to begin with, the family safety tells the parents what they need to do, such as parenting classes, get into substance abuse treatment, you know, just things that they needed to do for themselves to be able to have their children back. And for some unforeseen reasons, the parents were unable to do that, to fulfill those requirements. However, when that family was referred to us, their case, and the family safety gave us 4 concerns, and the very things that they had been wanting them to do in the very beginning of them getting involved in family safety. The 4 things was exactly the same thing, but it was worded different. The way that it was worded in the family safety concerns that needed to be addressed in private family time, so that they could develop their own family plan. And so they were able to talk in the private family time about how they could do those things to keep the children from being around people who are using substances, or keep the children away from having where the parents are having arguments and fighting, and so free of domestic violence. And so that was some of the things that they had to work out in that private family time. And also in those family private times, before the service people left, we found out that some of the individuals in the family were college educated. Some of them were they were professionals in the community. Some of them were very clear and knew how to communicate. So and strong personalities. And so those people rose to the occasion and said, I'll be the mediator, or I'll be the one that writes down the recorder. So they volunteered themselves to take part. And it was a beautiful process to watch and to be a part of.
Oh, I guess I'd like to add one more thing too, is Josh Matthews, or the therapist for the children. He was very eager every time that there was a family group meeting that he would attend, and he would always speak with the children if there was anything there that they wanted, or if they wanted to do a letter, he would have them write a letter, which was read out in the meeting. I thought that was very good for the children because they got to hear what the children wanted.
And it increased the safety for the children
Yeah.
to have him
Mhm.
there. And I mean, we watch this happen, those of us who do this work over and over again, that the family circle grew to include Josh.
Mhm.
And so they asked him to please let the children know that a family member was very ill, because they didn't have much communication with the children, that side of the family. And then they asked him to please let the children know that a family member had died. And then they had another question for him. And so he has become part of their ongoing safety, because that's the other thing. It's not just about safety for the meeting. It's about safety moving forward. How is this going to continue, that this circle can surround and support these children long after all of us are gone? And they asked in the third meeting, if family safety closed their file, could Josh, the therapist, still stay on? So
Mhm.
yeah, that safety is multi-layered and complex. Yeah. And I think, Catherine, we've got 5 minutes left, so we'll turn it back to you.
Yes, we do. Okay. Well, I just want to say thank you so much to Marilee, Patricia, and Trina for your presentation. Very inspiring. Loved hearing about the interconnectedness of your community. Obviously, there's been, historical traumas, but the two of you present in such a kind and compassionate way, and your passion for this work clearly comes through. So, on behalf of everyone, I want to say thank you so much for presenting today.